All right, guys, Szymanski, MJSWP, back again with another video here. Want to quickly talk about my overall, my agency and WordPress development, my journey throughout hosting. That's what this video is going to be about, totally about hosting. I'm going to tell you what I've done, so hopefully you don't make the same mistakes. Not in super great detail, but if you have questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to do my best to answer them. The real reason for this video is because what I'm going to do next. And I'll make more content specifically on it, but it's just been a really interesting position and I want to talk about it. That's why I do this. So to begin, we can just kind of slide over and I'll do mostly a lot of sharing here today. Where I started, where maybe you started, you probably didn't start here, but you probably started with something similar to this, was like shared hosting. The first place that I ever got hosting from was name.com. Still, honestly, I think for domain registrar and everything like that, it's probably fine. They probably have a lot of different products right now. I'm not still, affiliated with them or anything. But there's just, when you really get into this game and you start out, you really have to just do a lot of, you have to understand the different types of hosting. And I'm not going to say that I'm like a genius when it comes to the hosting and everything, but you have to understand what the difference is between the tiers of types of hosting. You cannot have if you start to build bigger sites, more dynamic sites, you cannot host them on shared hosting. Like these, dollar a month sites, dollar a month posting or whatever the heck it is. You can't do that. And it just makes sense that you can't make a lot of money or make a crazy site on something that costs a little bit of money. Generally, you have to make money or you have to spend money to make money, right? So if you just look, for instance, I'm not picking on name.com, everybody does this, but hosting, right? They have cloud hosting. We'll talk about that. That's kind of where I went. Web hosting, WordPress hosting. Just, you have to really understand what this is. $6 per month, I can just tell you from experience, that's not really where you want to live. You want to get that number up. I mean, a good, decent stuff, depending on where you're at, and we'll talk more about it, is probably going to be $10, $15 at least. And it's always going to ask, and it's always going to say some different things. Like, for instance, this, if you look at this and then you compare it to, just briefly, I'll just so I can kind of tell you, I don't know what their offering is like, but here's the thing. This is so name.com is partnered with this DigitalOcean, obviously, which is a cloud hosting provider. There's also Vultr. There's a ton of them. But just notice, if you can, very, very subtly, what the difference is between these plans right here in this web hosting category and this cloud hosting category. The things that you can see are you're starting to see actual technical, we'll call it, figures, right? So 2 gigabytes of memory, 2 vCPUs, figure out, obviously, understand what these things are deeper. But my point is, you're not seeing any real numbers, right? Technical tech specs numbers over on this one. You're just seeing one website, email accounts, gigabytes of disk space, right? That one doesn't really count. And then, MySQL databases. You're not seeing how many gigs of RAM on this server. You're not seeing anything else, because you are literally sharing resources with random other people that they sell that plan to. It's a weird concept at first. I didn't understand it, but my point is that if they're a good place, if you actually want to look into this, go to rocket.net. That's one of the best ones that I've seen and heard about. Don't have specific experience with it, but I don't want to go too deep. Just be cognizant of what shared hosting actually is. Other people, your neighbors, could be using up all the resources. Just literally think of it as you're trying to use a computer with somebody else. That's kind of a super simplified example of it. And multiple other people. So how a computer can get slow when you have a lot of programs running. Well, think about other people running programs on the same computer. Again, these are super simplified examples, but just think about that. So I say all of that to tell you that that's where I started, and that's where a lot of people start, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at a certain point, if you want to start building and doing things, this is not really where you want to go, okay? The next tier up of this is not really where you want to go, even though it says, unlimited websites. No. This is not it. What you would want to do is you want to look into cloud hosting, and if you want to go name.com, that's fine. But where I went was Cloudways. Now, if we just look at the briefly, just again, we use the pricing as the example. They also offer DigitalOcean. They do it for $14 a month here. You get these certain tech specs, you can continue to move up. There's all sorts of stuff. I really want to do a lot of different content on all these different things because they're all very confusing, especially when you're first starting out. And even as I go through it, like I still don't know exactly what every single I couldn't exactly. I know what Object Cache Pro is. I've used it, but I don't I don't know it super duper technically or anything. And I wish I could give you a better definition of what it is. As an example, I think really it's just caching your data set. I think ultimately, but my point is this is your next step, is like a cloud hosting solution where you pay specifically for a box, normally is what the terminology is, and that box or that little server, that little computer that's running that website or websites, if you want to do it that way, like you pay for the box. You pay $14 a month for those specs, those resources, that box, and then you can do whatever you really want with that box, within the limits of whatever, you can in this Cloudways thing. The reason I went to Cloudways is because I started to understand that with cloud hosting, these companies like DigitalOcean and Vultr, it may be changing now, which I'd like to think about and explore a little bit more just to understand. But the way that it worked, at least back then, is you couldn't just like go directly to those companies because they didn't have an interface to really deal with it. Like you had to set it up yourself or do like command line stuff. And I was like, that's more than I want to get into. So Cloudways was a great option for that. And truthfully, I never really had any trouble with Cloudways. I made a whole other video on, I don't know if it'll be on this channel, but I know wherever it's linked to, I'll link it for you if you want to check out the full review I did of Cloudways and the whole walkthrough and everything. It's really good. It worked really well for me for a really long time. And now I just feel like I've moved into my next phase of my growth. And I've understood now that the shortcomings with Cloudways, or the downsides, there's a lot of pros, but the cons are these numbers are inflated a little bit. So like for instance, generally what they do is like if you wanted to buy this actual box from DigitalOcean, this is probably more like $7. This one's more like $14. They like double the cost. And okay, that's their margin. That's totally fine. They're making money. They're making money off the things that they provide. I never really had any trouble with the support or anything like that. But to be transparent with you, I have 19 servers right now on Cloudways, and I'm paying like $640 a month for all of that. So, you can do the math or whatever. They're different size servers, different companies, whatever. But that's where we're at. One other thing I'll say real quick is DigitalOcean bought Cloudways. So Vultr, you don't see it up there anymore. You can still, I think, get it on the back end, but that's just another point, is like there's been some shift there since I've been there as well. So the real main point though, is that you have to understand costs, right? And you have to understand what you're getting for those types of costs and like the platform that you're also getting, this UI thing. So I am going through, and what I hope to kind of shine a light on and kind of tell you guys and really grow together in this aspect, is my next phase. This was, phase 2, right? For phase 1 was name.com. Phase 2 is Cloudways. Phase 3, which speaks to a bigger thing, is my next evolution of growth. And my next evolution of growth is involving not just a switch in hosting, but a switch in like, I don't want to say like people that I know. Like the next thing is meeting more people, being more of a part of the WordPress community. And what that has naturally moved into is GridPane. I learned about GridPane early 2023, made an account, but didn't actually purchase anything or get anything or anything like that. And since then, I have created relationships with multiple people that are big proponents of GridPane, specifically the guy you see on the screen there, Pat Gallagher, the CEO, I believe CEO, co-founder, and just great people, Pat included, but great people in this community, not just of GridPane, but in the surrounding communities of WordPress, because the difference is Cloudways, there's nobody, from what I can really tell, nobody in the Cloudways community or the direct team of Cloudways that really is a part of the rest of the WordPress community, at least in the US. I don't know. I think Cloudways is not based in the US, so that's a little bit of a obviously that just makes it difficult in one way or another. But GridPane, owned, built by USA or whatever. And again, if you have nothing, that doesn't really mean a whole heck of a lot per se to everybody, but it's more about the community aspect. It doesn't really matter where you are in the world, especially today, but it's more the community aspect. again, this is, I don't want to make this about any one specific person or people or whatever, but like the people that are in GridPane, or the people that use GridPane, or the people that are in these other companies that are associated with GridPane, they are part of a bigger community that is this WordPress community, wherever, the different places, Facebook groups or whatever, are part of the internet. So I'm trying to shine a little bit of a light on that. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I'm just trying to, again, like, see all this stuff and kind of like process it, and then kind of tell it to you guys so you can kind of see it for yourself as well, and hopefully be a part of it, really. But to get back to it, I'm moving GridPane. So I've already started on the platform. I've already moved this platform. I've talked to Pat directly. I have a lot of faith in this platform because it's kind of like Cloudways, but just better, and more of like a better, more personalized and better feel of an experience. As far as their pricing goes, they have a completely different model. You can actually be on this platform for nothing. You don't have to pay to be on it. I think you can sign up for free, and then you can, do your things to provision like a server or two. There's like different feature sets for the tiers or whatever. But my point is, you're not paying double per server. You'd be paying GridPane directly for these other things that are like kind of a part of it. So you probably are going to end up paying, but my point is that it's just a different model. I think it's a little bit more straightforward, and it's not as, there's not as much of a margin made on those servers and everything. And not just that, I just think that, again, this is only worth like what my opinion would be worth to you as somebody's watching this, but like I just feel like the experience is better, the people are better, it's more connected as a community, and it's just great. So again, part of the reason I'm making this video is just to document where I'm at right now, tell you a little bit about where I've been and where I'm going. We're moving to GridPane. We're going to end up being on this plan right here, Developer Plus, $5,000 a year. And you might be like, wow, Mark, that's a lot. Well, it is a lot, like in one payment kind of, but for that you get all of this stuff, which I'm going to make more videos about this specifically because I'm very interested in what Calvin is doing with Fortress, and he's partnered directly with GridPane on the security side of things, because that's something that I just have been totally look for more content on the security thing, because I've been just totally like not absent-minded on it, but just never dove into it enough. Was using WordFence, was now using iThemes. Like it hasn't been a good thing. So I'm excited for that, because that's not something that you want to. It's all been secure. We've never had a problem, but it's not something that you want to play around with. I'd like to be a little more educated and mindful of that. So I'm excited about that. There's a lot of other things in here that we'll talk about as I go through it, but that's going to be where we're at. There's a ton of cool features. I'm very excited to share more about that. And really, again, with everything that I'm doing here, it's more about building these connections. I've learned that is super vital. And that is the part that I think is almost even more valuable than the actual technology, the service, whatever, the product. I think that is really where you want to live in a community like this, where there's a lot of good people doing a lot of really cool stuff. And if you could be a part of that group and then serve outside of that community or within it, whatever, but like if you could do that, then I think that's just the natural trajectory for me. And I think that's a really good one that a lot of other people have had a lot of success with. So yeah, to wrap up, we're moving to GridPane Developer Plus. I'm excited about it. I'm very confident that this is the right move long term. And I will have more content for you guys whenever, as we continue to make these next steps. If you're interested in it, like I said, I'm going to show you how and try to document as much as I can about what our experience is like, moving everything over, and just continuing on this journey of building an agency in the WordPress community. So hopefully you guys got some value out of this. If you have any questions, because everything was super high level here, if you have any interesting or deeper questions, throw them in the comments down below. I'd be more than happy to chat about them. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching the content as always. I greatly appreciate it, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.